and tonight's lineup. At the Active Travel Cafe, we're going to start, as usual, with our crowdsourced news update. So if you have anything that you'd like to share that's happened where you live, or if you want to comment on something that's happened nationally or even globally, you're very welcome to put your hand up. And following this, we have tonight's talk. We have Jenny Rutherford, who's the Play Strategy Officer at Leeds City Council. And she's going to talk about rolling out play sufficiency in Leeds. So really, really excited to have her on. We have had a talk on play sufficiency before by Ludicology. So this will be a really nice complement for that. So on that note, does anybody have any news they would like to share with us? Adam.
I'm going to start with one which I think is it's about 2 hours long. There was the Transport Committee that covered the work of Active Travel England. It does go on for a bit, but I think the first 3 or 4 minutes are quite phenomenal in the statements that Chris Borden has made, but also I think a lot of the sort of statistics that are in there. So at some point I want to deep dive it and kind of make it into like an info cheat sheet. But I do think I'll post the link to it here, but I do think it's one of those things that's worth watching. Yeah, at least for the first 20-30 minutes. So but yes, I definitely recommend it. It's quite an achievement what Active Travel have been doing, England have been doing, and also the impact they've been having on sort of planning and sort of developments, which is really quite phenomenal. So worth it.
Thanks, Adam. Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. I just wanted to follow up on the presentation which was given by Phil Jones and Karina a couple of weeks ago on 20 miles an hour in Wales. We've now had the first 12 months results since the default was declared in Wales, and the results are just stunning. The trend continues from the first 9 months, which is what Karina and Phil were talking about. So we've now had there's 678 fewer casualties in Wales in the first 12 months of 20 miles an hour compared with the previous 12 months. And that includes about 105 serious or fatal injuries. That's 10 fewer people or 10 more people rather are walking around in Wales who wouldn't otherwise have been if they hadn't declared a 20 mile an hour default. So the results are just absolutely stunning. If you want any more information on it, just email me. I'll put my link in the box. Or if you want 20 miles an hour in your place, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, that's really good news. And, well done to everybody, including you, who's done such a lot of work campaigning for this. And we wait for it to happen in England. Adam, you got hands up again.
Yeah, this is actually Adrian as kind of a feed on from that. I know that Ireland now are looking at a rural 40 mile an hour link, a 60 kilometer. That'll be an interesting to follow because I think that's one of those discussions that people have around urban 20 mile per hour, but what should rural roads be as a default? So I think that might be another one to study and look at in terms of impact down the line. But I don't know if you had a look at this or not.
I'm aware of that. I haven't looked at it in detail. What I have looked at is the stuff that's going on in Surrey, which is really interesting because where they've lowered all the rural speed limits there, and that's happening, and that is a really interesting that's a really interesting development. So I mean, look, we're focused on 20 miles an hour, but actually we're also interested in lower speeds on other roads as well.
That's really interesting to hear about Surrey. I'm sure if we had anybody talk about that before. If you know anyone who's working on that or who could speak about that, would be really interesting to know.
Yeah, I'd be happy. Duncan Knox is the man. I can write to him and ask him whether he'd be prepared to give a presentation here.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you, Adrian. Yeah. Ben, do you want to come in?
Yeah, good news from Bedford for a change. The council has, after about 2 years without an active travel team, now advertised for a team leader for public transport and sustainable travel. And I'll put a link to that advert in the chat for anyone that might be interested. Yeah. If you're here and you're interested, please apply.
Thank you, Ben. Does anybody else have anything they want to share? No, you're all very quiet this week.
Robin needs to put his hand up.
Yeah,
Robin?
my electronic hand is not working, unfortunately. But I went to, there was a Active Travel England session today on communications, which was very good. 2 sessions actually, due to popular demand. And so this covered, they'd commissioned some research on what form of communication goes well both with average citizens and with the kind of people who are influencers and decision makers. And I think the bottom line is things that are simple. The health message gets across well, and that can be communicated as happiness. Statistics don't go along well with typical public, but do work with decision makers if it's the right kind of environment. And imagery is best colourful, simple, conveying impression of safe, friendly environments. And they're condensing that. I think they're aiming to put that out on their website, in which case we should, it's not there yet, but we should make sure the link comes here, and produce a kind of helpful fact sheet for local authorities, which would be good for campaigners as well. And the other thing that they mentioned in the Q&A afterwards is that in about a month's time, they will also be issuing a best practices guide to community engagement and consultation, which will also be good news, useful for some of us here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Robin. Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. After years of being a Cycle City Ambition Fund city and having received reasonable amounts of active travel funding, Newcastle have started to publish their bus service improvement plans, which overlap with strategic cycle routes, and there is no indication of the strategic cycle route on the BSIP plans, despite having received reassurance from the Assistant Director of Transport that all the schemes that came forwards would be LTN 120 compliant. So just really disappointed that Newcastle has got a strategic cycle route that exists only in a cupboard somewhere, no sign of it on the ground, yet you can delete it for a bus route without thought. So absolutely fuming, I'm afraid.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, things are not very cheerful in Newcastle at the minute. As somebody who's also there. Mark.
Well, just on that note, there is a requirement that the BSIP has to be run past ATE. So you might want to speak to the current acting chief executive of ATE, happens to have a Newcastle connection, and point this out to him. They can't stop, unlike the LCWIP, they can't, stop it. They have no direct control, but they can comment on it. And they can so they could, if they were minded to, comment on it and say it's disappointing that it's not mentioned and it might affect Newcastle's bid for funding from them in the future. That's all they could. That's the biggest threat they can do. Or they might not say anything. They might want to just keep quiet. But it might be worth bringing that to Graham's attention or the local manager's attention. That wasn't what I was going to talk about, but on that point, Brighton have got its budget, and despite, like many local authorities, being absolutely in the shit for funding, it's decided to freeze car parking because of the impact on lower income working class people who have to park, and it's a Labour controlled council, the political ramifications. And I was just wondering what other people have had. Charlie Hick's presentation on Saturday was quite interesting about car ownership and voting and stuff like that. But this is the same pattern that's reflected at government by not wanting to increase the fuel duty escalator and so on. I just wondered if other people had similar experiences about councils that could make money out of parking but not wanting to.
Yeah, we haven't really had much on parking, have we? It'd be interesting to do something more on parking, not bike parking, but car parking.
Yeah, the income, this you can't. Charlie's, there was the point about there's the lowest decile of people who can't afford to rent cars, and then there's the next 10% who think the word was forced car ownership, because they're working in maybe Amazon warehouses, which are in the middle of nowhere, which have no public transport, and you can't cycle to them. They have to have a car to get to those sort of places. And those people, discretionary income is all spent on cars, even though they can't afford to do it.
If anybody has any thoughts or wants to kind of join that discussion, do you want to put it in the chat? We've now got we've taken a couple more questions or comments or questions, news items, and then we'll move on to our talk for tonight. Tim, do you want to go first?
You're on mute. I just wanted to say it was so lovely to see quite a few of you in Leicester on Saturday. It was a shame that we didn't go for a ride, but and it was very, very cold and dark. I don't know that I would have known any of you but for COVID and this group. And it was really lovely to discover I'm one of the tallest members of the Active Travel Cafe, which, given I'm shrinking, was quite something. So thank you all for making the trip. And there were some really interesting talks. And more power to everybody's elbow. Cheers.
And what Mark and Tim are talking about, in case people don't know, is that there was a Labour Walks and Cycles event at the weekend that several people went to. Neil.
So I'm now going to follow Tim with that lovely piece. So I went to the all-party group yesterday. It wasn't just a cycling and walking group. It was also 2 or 3 others which are transport related, including autonomous vehicles. I have to say that the focus is very much on the vehicles, and the chair is from Milton Keynes, so draw your links there. However, Fabian Hamilton, who's Leeds, spoke out very strongly in terms of safety, particularly in terms of pedestrian, cyclists, wheelers, etc. I had to go after an hour, but I think it was reasonably good, and the fact that they all came together and invited CW along was very encouraging.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that, Neil. I had said 2 more questions, but if 2 more comments, but do you want to come in really, really quickly, because I need to bring Jen in a minute. Is he there? No. Okay, we might come back to you at the end, H. So this leads us to the second part of tonight's agenda, which is our talk slot, and I'm really, really pleased to have Jenny Rutherford here from Leeds City Council, who's going to talk about place efficiency, something that's very close to my heart, as many of you probably know. And I'm just going to let you launch straight into it, Jenny. Do you want to share your slides?
Thank you so much. Okay, see if we can manage to do this. Aha, okay. I'm hoping you can all see that.
Yep, all good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me today. It's really, really great to be here. And I'm really excited about it because, I mean, all of what you were talking about, I was like, oh, all of this links to play. This is so exciting. So yeah, there's obviously those really strong links between play and active travel, with play probably being that like real foundation bit for those kind of behaviours. So my name's Jen. I work for Child Friendly Leeds, which is part of Leeds City Council, and I'm their play strategy officer. And I'm quite a rare breed, actually, because not many local authorities have one. So in Leeds, it's great because we have my role, and we also have an appointed councillor who is a play champion at kind of exec member level. So yeah, that's pretty good. So I wanted to talk to you a bit about play, a bit about place efficiency, but I wanted to start with setting a bit of context for when I came into role kind of a couple of years ago. There's already been a lot of work going on around play. So we have, since 2012, had the Child Friendly Leeds team with the ambition to become a child-friendly city. And through that work, there's been this ongoing process of kind of youth voice and gathering kind of consultation surveys, ballots of almost kind of like 80,000 children's voices, which have formed the 12 wishes. So I think that's important because kind of our work on play and play sufficiency wasn't coming into a vacuum. There was this real strong culture of, you know, the voice of the child and kind of prioritizing children. And so I lead on wish number 2, which is all around safe spaces to have fun. But you can see there's also wish number 6, which children have pointed out, things around kind of wanting to be able to travel around the city safely and easily. So that's really great. And we have kind of leads that sit across the directorate and help to lead on those wishes. We also have a really strong culture of play streets and a long-standing culture of play streets, which was set up years and years and years ago. It was, I mean, I looked it up the other day. It's like, to think it's like 2008. And it was, I think we trailblazed it a bit, nothing to do with me, but because we had this really brilliant highways engineer who was very kind of red tape slashing in his approach and just brilliant on the phone to residents and just really, really made it happen. And so we're now really proud that we're kind of Beacon Play Street for playing out. So that's kind of a strong part of it as well. And finally, just the playful partners in our city, I think, is a strength for us because we have playful partners who deliver some really, really brilliant kind of playful opportunities, but they're also just such a massive part around the strategic vision for the city. So that's kind of the context that came into, really. I like to use this quote a bit. I thought I'd kind of set the scene talking a little bit about play first, quite generally. So this, yeah, I like this because play is not just kind of a nice to have. It's fundamental to a child's healthy development. And so I think, you know, if you're interested in children and them being happy and them developing well and being healthy, then you have to be interested in play. And when we first started having those conversations, it was really tricky because it sounds so kind of woolly and, oh, play, how lovely. But it's, you know, it's absolutely essential. And the kids in Leeds knew that as well when we kind of talked to them about our play sufficiency research. And these just a few of the really, really powerful quotes that we've got. Play makes life amazing, so we must prioritize it. And here, this is a kind of a great little diagram, very simple little diagram from Loop Ecology, but just really shows just the dire consequences of not playing and those kind of benefits. A lot of those are really kind of what we're working towards with active travel as well, in terms of our peer and place attachments, pleasure and enjoyment, autonomy and kind of resilience and all that. You know, if we play as communities, then those are the amazing benefits that we can have. And there's another quote that I use quite a lot that's something like that the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. And there are obviously on the right hand side some really, really kind of dire consequences too. I think this is some brilliant research that was done in Sheffield that you might have seen before, but is all about kind of just that generational shift. So you can see the kind of the great grandfather down through to the son, all 8 years old, and just how far they could roam. They've actually got some more funding to do this piece of research again, but with teenagers, which I think will be really, really interesting. And just how those kind of like that reduction in everyday freedoms. And we really found this through our research when talking to 9 and 10-year-olds that most of the kids were playing indoors, some in the gardens if they were kind of lucky enough to have one, on their doorsteps. And those, you know, there were some children that could play to the end of their street. But it was often, you know, if you were visible to an adult. And so this kind of research really did tie in with what we found. And so, you know, what kind of impact is that having for children who can't go and explore maybe same way that we did? I mean, you talk about play memories with adults kind of our ages, and you know, we dumped the school bags and we came back when the street lights kind of came on and things like that, and the experience of children nowadays is different to that. And so kind of how does that impact on our ability to be able to kind of get ourselves places and things like that, and that kind of resilience needed to do that. And I think so playgrounds is a relatively new invention and kind of links into this a bit. And you know, a playground, it wasn't kind of like, how can we, you know, provide further engagement opportunities for children? Let's make wonderful playgrounds. It wasn't really about that. It kind of, a playground was invented, you know, because of the rise of the car. So children started getting killed and injured on roads. and so playgrounds were created. And I think, you know, this group will know about this. The rise of the car, so in less than an average kind of lifetime, car use increased tenfold. And I think between like the 1970s and 1990s, it's doubled. And so what then happened, we see kind of what was maybe more playful public realm, children playing in the neighborhoods. You know, here is the fenced area where you can play safely, and here is your place to play. And recent road safety statistics, I think they do show that, you know, there is a decrease in child pedestrian casualties, but it's, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of like, is that just because children aren't playing in their neighborhoods anymore? So yeah, I mean, the vision is that you turn the playground inside out, and you get kind of children playing in the public realm again. Really, I'm not anti-playground. There's some brilliant playgrounds, but especially these ones on the screen where it's kind of KFC, kit fence carpet, they can be less than engaging. But yes, and I just kind of, I think play really is community development, and it's a pretty long quote there from one of our kind of play streets, but it just shows just how much space to play is just massively important for communities, not just for children. It is so important having that space to socialize and connect. And these photos are from a brilliant project that Playful Anywhere did. So we work really, really closely with Playful Anywhere, who do many things. But one of the things they do is, this was an area in kind of like inner city Leeds, and they brought one of their play boxes, which is a big shipping container, opened it out, just kind of spilled out loads of kind of wonderful, playful things, and then just had that really bold invitation to play. And were there over a long period of time. And the impact of that was just amazing in terms of communities came out, they scooted, they cycled, they sat and they chatted, they brought out food and chairs, and it just kind of transformed that space entirely. I think that's kind of like the real power of play with this, with kind of that kind of community development lens. And so now I wanted to talk about place efficiency, which is what we've been doing in Leeds. And place efficiency, I know that you've kind of heard a little bit about it before, but it's that kind of ongoing process of research and action into kind of better understanding children's lived experiences of play and how we can kind of improve them. And it encourages adults to pay greater attention to how our decisions and our actions really impact upon opportunities to play as well. And the aim is to kind of cultivate play on doorsteps, on streets, in homes, in schools, in green spaces, and really kind of across local authority policy and practice. I wanted to mention as well how it all started, because it started, the place efficiency in Leeds is led by, I work for Child Friendly Leeds, but it's led in partnership with Active Leeds. And I used to work for Active Leeds, where my role was all around basically having community conversations in our priority wards with communities kind of most impacted by the effects of poverty. And it was in trying to support people to move more. And that's kind of where this whole piece of work has come from, and because we were having community conversations, and everybody, not everybody, but so many people were talking to us about play and opportunities to play. And when we were trying to kind of influence new developments and new schemes, and we were saying play is really important to people in this area, we were just finding it was so frustrating, because again and again we get close to influencing and it would all fall to pieces. And so we were like, we need to do something more. So we were working really closely with Playful Anywhere. There's one of their play boxes in that picture, and they were in Seacroft, where LS14 Trust, a community organisation, were based, and they were doing some absolutely amazing work in a park in Seacroft that kind of really transformed that space from one that was kind of a lot of antisocial behaviour going on. The community had retreated, and they just really done this powerful work there to just make that shift and kind of like reclaim that space for the community. So it's been brilliant. So we worked closely with them to commission Ludicology, who kind of guided us through this process. And I think having them with this knowledge transfer process was just so crucial, because it meant that, you know, we tried before with our voices kind of be like, people really want play, but now we were going through this robust process, which stood up to scrutiny, you know, reliable data. And I think that made such an impact. And actually, I think about how we used to talk about play at the start and how it really has been a knowledge transfer process, because we talk about play in such a different way now in Leeds, and it's not just about playgrounds, it's about the whole of the kind of public realm as well. Children's voice was kind of right at the heart of our research, so we did a whole load of things. We did some online surveys. We did a lot of kind of like scrutinizing our policies and a bit of a baseline study of what we already had around play. But then the majority of it was time spent listening to children about their experiences. We also spent a lot of time listening to parents, but child's voice was kind of there at the heart of it. And our implementation team went out and spoke to children, year fives, year nines, and some others kind of from different community settings as well, for that kind of period. And I haven't got loads of time to go into too much detail about what we found, but I wanted to just give some headlines. One of the things that came through really, really strongly was mental health. And this is one of the things that struck me the most, was just how much children articulated that so clearly. We didn't ask children, is play good for your mental health? We asked them, what is play and why is it important? And they overwhelmingly came back with basically, play is important for my mental health. They used a lot of language around, it stops me feeling depressed. And it was also really key to emotional regulation. It was their way of getting a break and relaxing as well. But permissions to play was a massive thing. A lot of children recognised just the importance of play to mental health, but they weren't always able, the permissions weren't always there. So like I already mentioned, a lot of it was around having to be in sight of an adult, relying quite a lot on an adult and a car to be able to play. And I think that there was a big strand around community safety, just parents and caregivers really feeling like spaces weren't safe. And that was a lot of reasons. Traffic was a big part of that, but also, you know, scary people, scary places. They go, you know, a lot of kind of antisocial behaviour and crime issues around safety as well. Streets were really, really valuable to kids for play, and they talked about really great streets which had, I like that quite about interesting features, but they were also really smooth for scooting. They talked about that a lot. And then where there was space and where their friends were and where they had permission to play. So there were some really great streets, but they talked a lot about what made streets quite bad for play. And that was unsurprisingly traffic, parked cars, rubbish in the streets. Came back kind of again and again about things that made streets unplayable. Nature, even those kids that had really limited access to nature, they intrinsically craved it. So nature was play for kids. They spoke a lot about wanting to climb trees, access to green space. And I think what was also key for them was a variety of spaces, particularly the older ones that felt like spaces weren't necessarily designed for them. That was really key. And in terms of access to space, what came through quite strongly as well was just how important it was being able to get to a space. So traffic and cars stopped play, and they also stopped children getting to play. So that was a really, really strong theme that came out, was about being able to get to that play space in their local area. And many kids not being able to do that independently and needing to rely on an adult. So that was a kind of a quick whistle-stop tour of our research. And I think what also has been really powerful about play sufficiency in Leeds is the approach of it. So this is kind of a diagram from ludicology that demonstrates, you know, the drill down into the heart of it is that kind of children's lived experience. But it is really a whole systems approach. And in Leeds, we often say that play is everybody's business. So it is about that whole system coming together to think, how do my actions that I take, the decisions that I make, impact upon play? And this one as well, so I think what I often say to people in kind of in Leeds when I'm talking to them about this is that I am not a highways engineer, I'm not a planner. I don't know how to influence that kind of system in order to innovate it so that, you know, we can improve children's opportunities to play. So it is about that whole system looking through the lens of play. And actually, it sounds very simple, but as more people start to do that, it becomes a really, really powerful thing. And we're definitely not all the way there yet by a long way, but we have little successes. Like the other day, I had a housing officer approach me and say, I'm doing a talk on waste management, and I thought that you might want to come and talk about it. And I was like, yes, I absolutely do. And I think that is like the success of play sufficiency in action, is that the person thought about waste management and thought about play, because they're absolutely right. It's all about play. So I think it's that kind of like lens of play, lens of the child, that has been really, really powerful in Leeds. And what has also helped is our strategic commitment to play. So in December 2023, we took play sufficiency to our executive board, and we basically asked for an endorsement of the principles, an appointment of a play champion who can help us drive forward our action plan. We have 9 priorities that came out of our research, and they're all in that action plan, and we meet as a partnership, and we're very, very outcome focused and try and kind of stay tightly to that. And that has been massive for us, actually, because I have spent a long time trying to get people to come to play sufficiency partnership meetings, but it turns out that when the exec member asks you to do it, you do it. So that's been great, because we've had just this, like, we've got now decision makers around a table talking about play. And I think we were very grassroots and up in our approach of how play sufficiency started, but that can be tiring work when you're constantly trying to battle up the system to make change. And I think that strategic commitment bit gave us, oh yeah, we've got decision makers on our side here. We can actually have that shortcut to that, you know, they can decide and it will happen. So that's been massive. And we've got some exciting things coming up through the play sufficiency partnership in terms of the removal of no ball game signage, and some exciting pieces of work that we're really looking to get going with. And I think when we did our play sufficiency, as part of our research, we did focus groups with practitioners, and what came through really strongly was that people often saw how their work was really closely aligned to play, but they felt like the permission in a very professional sense as well wasn't really there for them to focus on it, because, you know, play was not part of their policy or strategy or vision. And so a big part of what we've been trying to do is to be trying to give that permission through basically getting play as much policy as we can. So it's there in our best city ambition, which sets out our vision for the future of Leeds. We're in there. And so I kind of point to that a lot, because, like, you know, this is our vision for the city. The right to play is there. We're really strongly through the health and wellbeing pillar. And because we lead in partnership with Active Leeds, we're very, very tight on that kind of health and well-being bit. We're through in our physical activity ambition, and yeah, Active Leeds are an absolutely brilliant team, actually, who just totally get it. And I think it started with them for when I was in their team, and I think that made such a difference, because they were like a team who encouraged you to take risks and go for it as well. So yeah, so we've got more to get in there, but that has massively helped us, that kind of professional permission to focus on play and legitimizing play as an outcome as well. Okay, I have no idea how much time that took. so I don't know if I might be way over.
No, it was brilliant. Thank you so much, Jenny. That's just really, really interesting and such great work, and really, really inspiring. I'm sure many people will be sending this presentation to people in their local authorities. You want to stop sharing, and
Yes.
we'll have some questions. I've got a number of questions. If anybody else wants, we've got a couple of questions in the chat. Please, in the Q&A, please do add your questions to the Q&A, and I will take them from there. Or if you want to put your hand up to ask a question, that's also fine. I was just going to start by asking, kind of, I mean, that's a real challenge, isn't it? Joining things up in a local authority, and I imagine that's perhaps one of your biggest challenges. Alongside, and I wonder how you kind of, presumably you're kind of limited, you know, if it's mainly you doing it, if you've got limited capacity, how do you manage to work across those teams, and especially, I suppose, in that context of, you know, kind of the defunding of local authorities over the last more than a decade?
It's definitely a challenge. What I think has really helped us is that we found our allies. So we had people at the start that just absolutely got it. And we've basically built up from there. And they're a part of the Place Sufficiency Partnership still now. And they have been from the very start. So I think part of it has been knowing who our allies are and really kind of growing from there. I think a big bit of the Place Sufficiency Partnership work that we've done has been to start off and be kind of like, let's just start with our roles and responsibilities as a member of this partnership. And so we've been trying to kind of make it very like tangible. So about, you know, please get us into your team meeting. Let's go and talk to actually the whole park service about this. And let's go and talk to, you know, intelligence and policy about this. And actually, because we've grown as a partnership, what then happens is they're doing that work for you in terms of going and sending that message out, which has been really good. And I think what else? I had a third one. It might come back to me. I've forgotten that one, but I did have a third one. But I think the Place Sufficiency Partnership has been really crucial to that. I mean, when we took Place Sufficiency to exec board, because of the financial pressures, we emphasized. Now, I'm not one for emphasizing that. I'm key that people invest in play, because if it's important, you invest in it. But we could go to exec board and just say, look, this is not costing us a lot of money. This is about an approach. And they really, really liked that, because during the financial situation we're in, and it is a lot about an approach. And so that means that we have got quite a lot of political support for it in Leeds, which I think helps, because actually councillors are saying, oh, you should go here, and you know, and take it to here and take it to here. And so we're still at the very, oh, I know what my third one was. My third one was that we after we just completed the research, we have had like a series of sharing the research workshops. And so that has actually been really powerful, to just be like, we've got as many people from across the directorate in that room as we can. And it's been like, this is what children say. And that's quite a powerful thing. And I think a big part of it as well has just been the fact that we don't think as a council, we think as a city. So Playful Anywhere, LS14 Trust, Opal, our 3 universities. We've got like a lot of people that sit on it that are not part of the council, which I think is massively helpful as part of that. And we've got a community of play as well, which was a bit of a trigger from Place Sufficiency. And that's a massive kind of group of artists, organizations as well, that kind of help to try and push out that message. That's maybe painting a picture that we've got it all sorted. We haven't, but I think we've got our community play, we've got our partnership, and we kind of try and drive forward a bit with those things as well.
Yeah, what I like about it is it starts with the child, and then it includes all those other things, you know, the people who are doing all that work in that area already, on the ground, and the people developing policy, and I suppose kind of, I know for people here, they will all be really interested in how you engage with your transport team, and Leeds is doing some really good stuff, I think, around active travel. I wondered, there's something else that you said though, that kind of permission to do this work around children and play isn't always there, and it is something that, I mean, I've commented on evidence that for parliamentary inquiries, that the way that we talk about active travel in streets is in quite a narrow way. We don't really talk about children and how children use streets differently. So yeah, I just wondered what you thought about how easy is it to work within that kind of current transport paradigm, and how much, you know, what would need to change, you know, to make it work better.
Oh, that's a good question. I think you make a really good point, because I'm talking to highways as well about, you know, there was all the work with the low traffic neighborhoods and all that work, which ended up being quite challenging and quite difficult, I think, in Leeds. And, you know, I think we miss a trick not talking about children and play when we talk about that, because, you know, that's kind of like the friendly face of it as well, I think. So I think that is a really powerful way to talk about it. So yes, how to say this in a I think what as I talked about that traffic engineer that we had who started Play Streets, and he was absolutely brilliant. And I think when you have people in a role like that, it just totally sets the tone, and then those people can leave, and then it can become challenging because that person was the person that just opened the whole door of it. So we have a pretty senior highways person that sits on our Play Sufficiency partnership, and that is great. We are still kind of like, it is I'm trying to say what I'm saying with obviously skirting around the truth here. But no, I think what I feel like in Leeds is we've got a really strong political support for it, actually. So I think actually what could happen if things like Play Streets, were, in danger, or is something was in threat of being cut. I think we have that understanding there in Leeds, and I guess that's the thing, is like once you get that political support, strategic commitment bit, people get it, and they're kind of things that might otherwise be kind of swept aside a little bit are protected. I have not answered your question because I'm not sure how to do it in a
challenging. It's okay. I think everybody appreciates that.
But I lead on Play Streets in the city, so I work really, really closely with highways. So, and it's not always easy, but I think just the relationships bit is so important. And I think I'm not like a play expert at all. And so sometimes they're like, oh, we have a play expert with us, and I look around like, who are they talking about? And they mean me, but that's not my strength. I've not studied that, but I think what I am quite good at is relationships, and trying bringing people on a bit of a journey. And I think that's where we are, like we're with kind of our highways team, is like you go at the pace a bit, but we're kind of, yeah. So yeah, I dodged around it, but sorry.
Oh, thank you. I've got a few questions in the chat, but if anybody else wants to add one, there is plenty of time for that, we hope. And the first one, though, is Francis Vernon wants to know, have you got ideas on how local authorities can hear the views of children and young people when they do consultations? And I guess that's around transport and traffic.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that we're doing some really brilliant consultation in Leeds where we work with Playful Anywhere as well, to be honest, because those they actually do a lot of work nationally, but that kind of process where they bring the box and they invite people to play, that kind of box becomes actually a catalyst for conversation, and they kind of just like hold the space for that, and they do it in this amazing way. And I was working in partnership with Emma, who is the kind of leads on Playful Anywhere, and we had this vision that we kind of put forward that was specifically around how we could consult better around those changes that are maybe pedestrianising areas or kind of lowering traffic, because we could use this model of a really playful process that brings families' voices into it. You can use Play Streets and show people what that space might be like if it was low traffic, without it being this kind of, we're closing this street and that's it. And I think that kind of a consultation, which would be a very playful kind of process, would just be this wonderful way of talking about that. We got close to getting it funded, and we actually haven't in Leeds yet, but I'm still hopeful, because I think those are voices that don't get into that kind of space that are really, really key to it, and that are often really, really kind of positive around those things. So there's that. So I think Play Streets should be used more to kind of to show people, because they often don't know it if they haven't ever seen it or haven't ever felt it. So I think that's really key for that. We work really closely with our planning team, who have been doing loads of amazing work trying to get children's voice into our like Leeds local plan update, and so they've been doing some really specific work about urban design in schools. They're going to launch hopefully a new consultation that's around actually they're interested in the getting to the spaces, so they're going to do some specific consultation around that. I think it's about a different approach often. It is about, you know, take it to the streets, take it to the doorstep, have a playful approach with it. And yeah, I do believe in that. There are some brilliant examples where people have done that in Leeds, I think.
Yeah, I mean those all sound like such good ideas. We've got moved to the point now where if local authorities are doing most of their consultation online, and we know what that does to the discourse, and we know who it excludes from taking part in the conversations, and it's not. But and that's so much of that's around budgets, isn't it? And having the people there and the time, and the expertise. I feel we've lost a lot. In that respect, we have a long way to go back there, but yeah, I mean, hopefully, I hope you do get some funding to do that. It'd be really interesting to see how
we're
that works.
hoping to pilot a link in with schools that is around using the local geography unit. And I used to be a teacher, so I've rewritten a Key Stage 1 and a Key Stage 2 unit of work that's around their local area, but it's about playing in their local area. And it guides the teachers through kids going out and basically kind of designing a playful route, and then assessing their playful route and noticing where there's great spaces for play and where it might be more difficult to play on their route to school. But more than just noticing that, we're trying to get them to be able to take the next step. So in terms of that like active citizen bit, where we kind of support them to contact local councillors, feed into like local plans and strategies so that they can actually like properly get their voice in to actually make those changes. And then that will be, hopefully we can tie up with that our connections with, you know, the road safety team who can come and then, you know, the school, if the school kind of designs this route and there's this desire there to get kids walking or scooting or cycling to school, and just to build in a bit of confidence and capacity, I think, around that, because actually it's not the norm anymore as much, and when it's a very scary thing I think for a parent to be like, out you go child on your own. But if we build the confidence and the capacity there, and we actually, you know, there's a walking bus and we guide the school to being able to build in the support around it, then hopefully it becomes a bit of an easier process. We haven't done that before, it's a pilot, but we're giving the resources to the schools now, so I can let you know how that goes. But it's all around trying to change places and neighborhoods to be more playful and encourage those playful kind of routes as well.
Yeah, great. That sounds great. I'll take another question from the Q&A. Kate Collier says, in Worcester, we've received lots of hostility around some play streets and also the bike bus. Has Leeds been on that journey of changing and challenging perceptions of children have a park down the road, don't let them on or near roads? And how have you created that change? Is it about political will?
That's a really good question. Oh, yes. Yes. I lead on play streets. Yeah, we have a lot of people complaining. We haven't solved it yet, but what we have done is we've developed a process for our play streets where what used to happen is we used to get an objection or a complaint come through, and it was a bit of like a knee-jerk, oh, we're all really stressed because now this person might take it through our council complaint system. But it was that whole reason why like a no ball game sign goes up, you know, it's the loudest person who's shouting about it and who can just kind of kill something. So what we said instead was like, if objections come through, they go to like a bit of a consultation on their street. And it's a bit of a thing to put on a resident, though, to be fair. I don't even like doing that, but it just gives a sense of like who's in support of this actually. And what often happens is the street is generally in support of it, and actually there's a few voices that don't want it, but actually there's a majority there that does. And so that is a little change in our process that we've made. I think what does, and actually that quote that I showed before on the screen was from a play street where they had to go to consultation about it because people didn't want it. And it just shows that actually when they see it, this is not like you're not taking away my rights as a driver, and actually this is just a very temporary, lovely thing that we can all do together. So we've changed that process, but also I think the political bit is really, really important actually, because it stops the fear a bit, I think, for like people like my managers and my manager's manager who get a bit like, because then we have the political support there to say, no, this is all right. We believe in this, and that makes a difference. And actually what we're doing is this year we're holding a bit of an awareness raising session on play, but on play streets in particular as well, for how councillors can kind of just raise awareness of it, because even though we've been doing it for a long time, we still feel like people don't really know about it, so that they can be involved in the raising awareness piece as well, and it can be a tool that they can kind of offer out to people as well. And we do have a lot of support from councillors, which does really, really help, I think. And that's that whole bit again about that strategic commitment bit that just makes it a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's often with any of these things that are a little bit controversial. It's if they can ride it out, usually they find like actually it's okay, we can do this. And if they cave too early, then it's quite hard, isn't it, to get back there.
Exactly.
I think they've got another question. Andrew Sterling says, are the police in Leeds supportive of the council? Of the council's support of children playing in public. Tim Gill's book No Fear reports that West Midlands Police in 2006 dealing with many reports from the public of young people just existing in public space, not committing crime, just being out and about. And yeah, and that's actually something that I'm aware of happening in Newcastle as well, where young people who are not necessarily doing anything problematic are being told, people are complaining about them to the police.
Definitely. That is, we still got work to do there. That came through really strongly in our research, was that from the older young people, the teens, was it about them getting moved on a lot, and that kind of like real stereotype attached to them. That came through really, really strongly. I think we've been trying to get a police representative to sit on the Play Sufficiency Partnership. We haven't managed that yet. But what we have done, and this is the bit I guess is that bit about that whole system and allies. What I do have is I lead on Wish 2 around safe spaces to play, alongside kind of a youth service manager who has a really, really good relationship with the police, and is kind of actually taking those conversations to those arenas where my voice isn't really there, but he is kind of he's kind of representing there. So I think we're at a really, really early stage with it, and I don't think we've cracked it at all. But that is where I'm looking to go next, definitely, is to really kind of try and bring the police with us on it.
Presumably you've got a police and crime commissioner. I guess
Yes.
sometimes the people who can kind of drive change, aren't they, culturally?
Definitely, because it is, I think what we recognise through the partnership as well is it's so much about like culture shift and that campaign piece as well, and just changing mindsets. And so I guess in that sense, like Play Sufficiency is this kind of, a lot of it is about that. It's not about necessarily money. It's about like that culture shift campaign piece of work as well.
Yeah. And then a final question, unless anybody else has one. Do you think it makes a big difference being a unitary council?
Sorry, what is a
Leeds a unitary authority? I don't really. You're part of a combined authority, are you not in Leeds?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's part of West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Right, yeah, I'm thinking that. So yeah, I guess that's a general question. Do you think, does it make any difference, that kind of governance in terms of?
Well, I think, and this is another thing again, is like we're stepping into it. We haven't got it sorted at all, but I just can see that I think that's the next step for us, is like Bradford do a load of amazing stuff around play. I think Kirklees are starting to write a play policy. I think Wakefield does. I think like I was talking to somebody recently about coming together as a combined authority. We haven't really done it yet. And I think we really, really need to. And I'm really keen that we try and bring kind of Tracy Brabin in on it as well, because it's really in line with her agenda. So I think we haven't done it yet, but I think there's loads of potential there, and kind of yeah, that's our hopefully next little bit, is to actually join forces together a bit more. We've kind of got some ties here and there, but I think to come together properly as a combined authority could be a really powerful thing. So yeah, got a lot of work to do, but I think that'll be a good thing.
Great. And it doesn't look like anyone else has any more questions, and we've kept you, I think, long enough from other things. Thank you so much, Jenny. And yeah, it would be great to have you on again if when you've made some progress and you have more things to share. It'd be really good to have an update. But yeah, it's just really, really inspiring. Thank you so much.
Oh, I really appreciate it. I've loved being on. Thanks so much. Thank you.
And I'd better check who we have next week to inspire us before I let you go. Oh yes, so next week it is Lauren James and Amy Cunningham from MP's Smarter Travel, and they're going to be talking about their work on the Lambeth Accessibility Working Group on behalf of Lambeth Council. So that should be another great session.